Hello, my name is Douglas, a librarian from the Baltimore County Public Library, and welcome to the next installment of Cooking by the Book. This is a series where I go into the collection, I find a cookbook we own, and we test a recipe to see if it works. Today, I am excited because we are working with Toaster Oven Takeover by Roxanne Wyss and Kathy Moore. This is a book that allows us to make some elevated things using a toaster oven. You don't have an oven handy? No worries. We can elevate something, and today we are making a German chocolate cake. If you thought toaster ovens were only good for pizza rolls and chicken nuggets shaped like dinosaurs, you are wrong. You can impress your friends, your college roommates, anywhere you can have a toaster oven, we're gonna make a cake. So get ready, get set, we're going. I have started by turning our toaster oven to the temperature of 350 degrees. I have set it for always on because that way it will preheat and it will also be ready for when we want to put the cake in the toaster oven. So, what do we need? The first thing we need is we need an 8-inch cake pan. I measured this, I put it in the toaster oven to make sure it fit. You could probably use a square pan as well, but you do want to make sure you have the right size pan so that when you slide it into the toaster oven and close the door, it'll be ready to bake. I have cut a sheet of parchment paper. This is easy to find, but the great thing about parchment paper is that you place it inside your cake pan, and that way, when you flip your cake out and turn it over, it's not going to stick at the bottom, and it's going to make it much easier for you in the long run. I have a little bit of butter. You could use margarine. You can use the whipped butter. I just have a butter square. And the first thing that we're going to do is we are going to grease the cake pan. And that's also going to make it easier for when you flip your cake out so that it comes out nicely and smoothly and is ready to cool. So just give me a second and I am just going to grease the sides. Make sure you grease up and down the sides because that's where it's going to stick a little bit. And I'm just going to put just a little bit on my parchment paper just to make it easy to peel off. And now I'm just going to place my greased parchment paper right into my cake pan and it's ready to go. I'm going to set this right to the side to be ready for when we need to add our batter. I'm also going to add a half teaspoon of white vinegar to my 2/3 cup of whole milk, just like that. I've already pre-measured. It's good to pre-measure things and get them ready. It makes it much easier when you're baking so that you can just be ready to the steps that you need. And I'm just gonna give this a little bit of stir. And then I'm also gonna set this right to the side until I need it. To make our cake batter, we are going to use 3 different bowls and we are going to alternate. And this really helps keep your cake batter smooth and it keeps it from getting lumpy. You want to make sure that all of the lumps of flour are whisked out. I'm going to make my dry ingredients first. I've already measured out. This is a half teaspoon of baking powder, a half teaspoon of baking soda, and a 1/4 teaspoon of salt. And I'm just going to add that right into my mixing bowl. I also have 3 tablespoons of cocoa powder because we definitely need that rich chocolatey flavor in a German chocolate cake. So I'm going to add that. And I also have 2/3 of a cup of regular flour. And so I'm just going to tip that right in there, set that over there, and I'm going to grab my whisk. This is my favorite part. I'm just going to whisk up my dry ingredients. I want to get them nicely combined so that the baking powder, the baking soda, and the salt are integrated throughout my batter so that way when I have a nice mix of batter, everything is fully incorporated. And there we go. Our first step is done. And now we are going to work with some of the wet ingredients. For this part, I am using a half cup of brown sugar. I have a half teaspoon of vanilla. I have 2 tablespoons. I am using canola oil. and of course, 1 egg. The nice thing about this particular cake that I'm making is it's relatively small. It only serves 6, so if you're having a small party, remember, a toaster oven is not terribly big on the inside, so we're not making an enormous 3-tiered cake. You could, if you wanted to, make this 3 times and you could tier it together, but we are just making a small party cake that is going to be a real treat for everybody that comes over. And so, like I did before, I am just whisking these ingredients. I'm trying to get them nicely incorporated. I want the egg to kind of go through the brown sugar. I want it to get that nice vanilla flavor. And this is going to be my next step. And so, we are ready to now combine our batter. And so with this, I'm going to be bringing my dry ingredients. I've got some wet ingredients, and I also have the milk that I have mixed with the white vinegar. And so I'm just going to alternate. I'm going to pour a little bit of my milk right into there. I'm going to take my whisk. I'm going to just start slowly incorporating the milk into my batter. And at first it's going to seem a little dry and sticky, but it's going to really take shape as we go. I'm going to add a little bit of my egg mixture right there. I'm going to start kind of mixing and incorporating. A little more milk. And we have a lovely chocolate cake batter. And so now, what I'm going to do is our last step is I'm going to take my prepared cake tin and I'm just going to tip my cake batter right into the cake tin. And as you can see, it's lovely. It's, you know, now kind of a more of a liquid consistency because of the milk and the oil that we've added. And it will just kind of be right into my cake tin. And now the next step will be putting this into our toaster oven, and we are going to let this bake for 20 to 25 minutes. We'll check on it at 20. We're going to put it in now. This is the portion of the program that is really going to blow your mind. I know many of you are sitting at home, and like me, you're used to getting frosting out of a can. It's easy. You open it up, you scoop it out, you put it on your cake or cupcake, or you just eat it out of the can, whichever you like to do. But I'm going to show you that actually making a frosting can be relatively easy. A German chocolate cake frosting is basically butter, sugar, a little bit of flaked coconut, pecans. It's not a hard frosting to make, and it's a great one to start with if you're a little bit new at this. I'm going to start with 3 tablespoons of butter, and I'm just going to put this into my pot right here, my saucepan, and I'm just going to let this melt a little bit. I want the butter to soften and be melted because we are going to be incorporating a few things into here, and we're going to be stirring, and we're going to let it cook a little bit. I am going to be using a ½ cup of evaporated milk. This is easily found in any supermarket. You can get this, and it's in a can. I'm using 1 egg yolk. That is important. If you've never separated an egg before, I would suggest practicing a little bit to get the hang of it, but it's easy to do. And I am using a 1/3 cup of just white granulated sugar. And I'm just going to add that right in. I'm not going to add my coconut or my pecans until later, until after this has gotten a chance to cook. So I just want to stir this, and I just want to give this a little bit of a cook. Now what I'm going to let this do is I'm going to let this cook for about 6 minutes. This needs to thicken a bit. I want it to kind of get a thicker consistency, because if you know, German chocolate cake kind of has that really gooey, you know, intense sort of stickiness to it. So you really want to kind of have that. So you want to give this this frosting a chance to cook a little. And so you can see this is thickened nicely. I let it cook a little bit. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to tip my coconut my flaked coconut. I used unsweetened flaked coconut because the frosting is going to be pretty sweet on its own. And I'm going to tip in my pecans. And I'm just going to throw them in there, and I'm going to give this a nice stir. And it's already incorporating into this really lovely German chocolate frosting. I can smell the coconut already. I'm going to scrape my frosting right into my bowl. And then what I'm going to want to do is I'm going to want to chill this. Give this a chance to cool. You don't want to spread hot frosting onto a hot cake. That could be a complete disaster because you want to give the frosting and the cake a chance to come to at least a cool temperature, room temperature. And now we are ready to take the cake out of the oven. So make sure you use oven mitts. This is a small oven, so you definitely don't want to reach in there. And this does slide out like that. And oh my goodness, look at this. Look at that. It's risen nicely. And it smells absolutely divine. I'm gonna set this right here in the pan. I'm gonna cool this for 10 minutes before I'm going to attempt to flip it over. So once this cools for about 10 minutes, we are gonna turn it onto our surface. So that is our next step. I am just gonna tip her right out, just like that. And as you can see, because of the parchment paper, I can just peel this right off the top. And I've got this wonderful, springy, chocolatey German chocolate cake that has come out of our toaster oven. It's not a very high cake, it's a very low cake. We didn't have a large amount of batter, but this is perfect if you are just making a light dinner and you have a few friends over and you just want to add a little special touch. And now all we're going to do is get the frosting out of the refrigerator. It was chilling, and we are going to frost our cake. And finally, our last step is frosting our cake. Now remember, this is a low cake. It's meant to be a little informal. It's meant to be for a party. We don't have to even worry about the sides. It doesn't have a lot of height. It's going to have a lot of flavor. So really, all we need to do is cover the top with our German chocolate frosting, which has turned out really well. As you can see, it's a really thick frosting. And so what I'm just going to do is I'm just going to kind of tip this right out onto the top of our cake. And I'm just going to spread it around a bit. And this has an ample amount of frosting for the small amount of cake that we've got. It doesn't have to be a real thick layer of frosting, but the frosting itself is very thick and very sweet. So as much as you can get it around the edges, I'm sure your guests will love the taste. So even if it is not as perfect as you want it, it's going to be a wonderful dessert. And I can already hear my coworkers lining up outside, getting ready to take a taste of this one. And we are ready to go. Now all I've got to do is finish making dinner, serve dinner, and then slice and serve dessert, which is the best part of the meal. So I really do hope you take a chance on this one. It's really easy, as you can see. It's delicious. We made it in a toaster oven, so I'm gonna have to give Toaster Oven Takeover a thumbs up. This one really worked, and I'm excited to share this with you.